Hello, hi, welcome back. This is not going to be a typical video, and the video quality is not going to be the same, but that's okay, we carry on. I am a little sad. I'm a little sad because I found out that one of my favorite newer shows that is on Broadway is closing, and that would be Cats, the Jellicle Ball. I'm also wearing a shirt that I got at the PAC, and I just want to kind of talk about it. It's not going to be my usual, fully researched video. This is just going to be musings and, maybe rantings about why it is closed and my feelings and thoughts about Broadway currently right now. I haven't made a video in a really long time because I've honestly been a little disillusioned by theater and Broadway and just life in general. So I am trying my best to make content, to make videos, but it has been hard. So anyways, like I said, I saw Cats the musical. Got so many little, things to talk about it. I saw it, what day was this? This was July 21st, 2024. So quite a while ago. And I remember after I left this show, I was genuinely shocked. It was one of the best shows I had seen the whole weekend. I think I saw like 3 or 4 shows on Broadway that weekend that I was there. I just had incredible things to say about it. I knew it was going to go to Broadway. I was so excited for it. I was so excited to have other people see it, and to me it really gave Black musical. Obviously my channel has a lot of videos about what Black musicals are and just keeping up with the history. It's something I care about, and I truly felt like this was the first time I had seen a fully formed, thought out ode to parts of Black culture, obviously, and parts of ballroom and queer culture as well. And it was just so wonderful. So I think it recently went to Broadway. I think this past, when was that, January? That feels about right. So to hear that it's closing so soon, August 8th, I think, is just so heartbreaking. And there's been a ton of videos from people who say, oh, well, there's a reason why it's closed, da 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 da. This is why it's not profitable, all of these things. But what we're really not getting at is the heart of what that means. This show is literally closing, and once Cats, the Jellicle Ball closes, there will not really be any original shows that are existing. Now, I know people want to debate whether Cats, the Jellicle Ball is original because it's technically a revival. However, I really think that this is an original show. Yes, the music is kind of the same, but the concept, this is the first time that I've seen a revival concept be so incredibly different. You cannot separate the culture that comes with this show, and that's something that's really interesting to me. Now, I also want to say that I personally feel like part of the reason why it is closing is because of what happened at the Tonys. Now, I watched the Tonys this year for the first time in a really long time because I get very annoyed with the Tonys. I really do. Again, there's this concept in theater that just leaves me so frustrated, which is that they try to pretend that theater is very diversive, right? Broadway's so diversive, and Broadway's so woke, and it's so, cool and changing when they uplift abusers, they uplift stories upheld by the white gaze, they uplift certain people who have certain body types and look a very particular way, they uplift certain stories that leave out a lot of other people. Do you know what I mean? And when I was watching the Tonys, I just couldn't help but notice that. Every chance they would be talking about diversity and inclusion, but then they weren't actually uplifting anybody. They never said free Palestine. They never said we care about these causes. It's just all a ruse. And I say this to say that when Ragtime won Best Revival of a Musical, I kind of felt like that was the nail in the coffin for Cats, the Jellicle Ball. There's a lot of reasons for this. That's not to say that Cats, the Jellicle Ball isn't an amazing show. Obviously, I could list on and on and on why it is. But Cats, the Jellicle Ball fits in a very specific category, right? If you don't care about seeing shows with a ton of people of color, if you don't care about seeing shows with queer people, if you don't want to see shows with queer people, you're probably not going to see this musical, right? And currently, in our political climate, which I've seen literally nobody talk about this, in our political climate, those types of stories, like Cat's Jellicle Ball, are not uplifted. And I see a trend in Broadway, which is that they just don't want shows like this. They just don't. I'm not trying to say anything bad about Ragtime. Obviously, I like the music from Ragtime. But there's just this constant narrative that Ragtime is this uplifting show and like it depicts the current times of today and we need to talk about it. Yes, but no. Because Ragtime still very much centers upon a story where the people of color suffer. I don't know how many times I have to say this, but this is a current and previous trend that happened in Broadway where anytime there were shows about people of color, there was a struggle. There was some sort of violence done upon them or to them. There was some sort of, racism, overlooming racism with no actual face that was so oppressive and hard, right? How does that change the narrative? How does that redefine what we're seeing? Ragtime is not groundbreaking. Not anymore. It wasn't groundbreaking then. It's not groundbreaking now. And when it won Best Revival, they were sitting there like, oh my god, it's so important to talk about Ragtime. And I'm confused because that is not a new concept, nor is it anything new or different. Now, for people who have never seen Ragtime, you might think the opposite, right? Like, I could see how someone who's never seen the show might say, oh, well, it seems really groundbreaking. It seems like it's about America. And it is, but by the time you get into Act 2, or by the time you get to the end, almost every black person is dead. Dead. They're all dead. And they all died horrifically. And the only black character that has survived is a child. I don't see how that's uplifting. I just don't. I don't feel like that's what we need in this current political climate. We need stories about joy, about resilience, about culture, about community. That's what Cats is. And I think that's what makes it so frustrating to hear that it is closing. And it's so annoying. It's so annoying because I don't have a problem with Ragtime. I just don't know why we keep changing the narrative as if it's so groundbreaking, because it's not. It never has been. It never will be. Also, Ragtime is not a black musical. I don't know why people keep saying it's a black musical. Again, my whole channel is dedicated to black musicals. It's not. It's the music is great. Don't get me wrong. Love Audra McDonald, but it is not a black musical. The narrative is completely focused upon the white gaze. Sorry to say that. I know that's gonna ruffle some feathers because the theater community is just not ready to hear that. Also, I'm not saying that Ragtime doesn't deserve to be on Broadway. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think that every show, whether like Ragtime or whether like & Juliet, deserves to be in the theater space. It would just be nice to have a little bit more well-roundedness, a little bit more diversity in what shows you can pick. It would be nice to have that because it feels like right now, really you can only choose between commercial and commercial. Going from that, I saw a lot of comments saying that another reason why Cats the Jellicle Ball is closing is because of the space. If they would have stayed off Broadway, they would have made more money. Yeah, that's probably true, but I think instead of scapegoating and saying it's the musical's fault for transferring to Broadway, I think we need to be talking about why the rental prices for Broadway theaters are so unsustainable. Because at this point, things are closing left and right, and they're only going to keep closing. The economy is not what it used to be. I do agree that theater tickets are very expensive, but another point. Hold on to that thought. I will be talking about the prices for this show for a second. But at the same time, why are we not trying to understand why the rental prices are so high for these shows? It's so high that it's not sustainable for anybody. It doesn't matter what prices they're charging. To go on to that, the way and the model that Cats the Jellicle Ball worked is that they were really all about sustainability. I find that theater Broadway tickets are very expensive. They can be extremely expensive. As someone who usually goes to New York like once a year to see shows, they're only getting higher and higher, right? The average cost for a good seat, a decent seat, is like $120, right? And it can go up from there. Obviously, I saw Cats Jellicle Ball at the PAC, which is technically off Broadway. It's, it's not even on Broadway. I paid $20 for a seat in the front row. Okay, now I get it. That is regional theater. That's not Broadway, so you can get cheaper tickets. Okay. However, I don't know. I kind of push back on that a little bit because I have seen shows off Broadway and they were still expensive. Like when I saw Little Shop of Horrors, that technically is off Broadway, my tickets were very expensive. Like I feel like I splurged. I probably have the ticket somewhere, but I think I at least paid, had to be $90. Like maybe more. I feel like it was more, but it was definitely that $90 and up range, right? So that's still expensive, right? The PAC made their tickets $20. I got like a young people deal where if you're under the age of 35, you get like, which is an awesome deal, right? However, I said that to say, when it did transfer to Broadway, I was checking those tickets all the time to see when I wanted to come to New York. I obviously was going to come see it on Broadway. Obviously, that's not going to happen now because I'd have to go by August 8th, which is crazy. But I was going to go, and the tickets were really reasonable. I think I saw tickets for $50. I saw tickets for $70. I saw tickets for, that's very cheap for Broadway. And I think part of the reason as to why the show might have closed is because it seemed like the producers and the people who were at the helm of the show really wanted to keep the prices lower, to keep it affordable for people. That is commendable, right? Like that's a really awesome thing, and it's a shame that has not come into the conversation, that in order to be accessible for people, you're not going to be sustainable on Broadway. That's a problem. Like I don't understand that, especially when we already know that in theater, yeah, the ticket prices are high, but the people are not being paid. They're not. It's not like an actor makes, a good chunk of money. They don't. The rates are really low. You all would be shocked if you're not in theater, you don't work in theater. You would be shocked at how much people get paid. It's crazy, and it's not like you're being paid for a little bit of work. You're working hard, and you're being paid for nothing. Not to say that money is everything, but if we're already talking about the rates of Broadway and sustainability and rental prices for the theaters, I think that is a conversation that needs to come up. And it feels like it's just not possible to be on Broadway and to be accessible. That's a problem. Why are we exploiting people? Why is that considered a good thing? Like, I feel like we've just like lost the plot a little bit when we talk about this musical. Okay, anyways, last but not least, getting on a positive note, this was a beautiful show. Truly, I am very thankful to the creative team and to everybody who made this show what it is. Honestly, it's a beautiful piece of theater. And the great thing and also the sad thing about theater is that sometimes it just doesn't live on forever. We want it to, obviously, we see that, I don't know, I like The Lion King. I'm not going to roast The Lion King. We see that, I don't know, Aladdin has been on, Broadway for how many years, right? And nothing is happening to it. And then we see that Cats only gets, a very, very temporary run. And it's unfortunate. It doesn't feel good to know that shows like this can't exist for a long period of time on Broadway. It does feel bad. But at the same time, part of theater is just the fleeting nature of it not surviving forever. Everything has to end at some point, including this gorgeous show. And at least we all have memories and relics from it. I think there's a slime tutorial video somewhere out there on the internet. So hopefully if you haven't seen it, you get to. Obviously, I would love to make a full-formed video that, gives this show its justice to how beautiful it is and the topics that it talks about. But I can't make any promises because life right now is really lifing. So this is all that I could give it, and it really does deserve more. And I find myself saying that with so much of Broadway. It's always like, this deserved better, this deserved more. And I don't know what to make of that, especially right now with the political climate. It feels bad. But like this show and like Maya Angelou, still I rise. And while this show may not longer be on Broadway, I hope that it will tour and live a long life as it deserves. So anyways, thanks for watching. Sorry it's not super fancy, but you know, do what you gotta do. So thanks. Bye.